Greetings and much blessings and mitakuye oyasa. Well, I want to take out this time to do this particular video, and it was actually inspired by uh, a video that Dane Calloway did, and he talked about how the ghettos in the United States are the actual reservations, and so that makes a lot of sense. I've always felt that, especially many times Ray has roamed onto many different so-called Indian reservations throughout the United States. I can see the similarities to that in a lot of the neighborhoods that I've grown up in as well as come across. So, but I want to put a spin on what Dane Calloway has said as far as just ghettos being the reservations, because yes, he is correct that the United States, uh, all basically the ghettos and the hoods in the United States are the actual reservations. But my spin on it is that, given the title of this video, the ghettos in the U.S. are the true reservations, not the actual reservations, not only the actual reservations, but the true reservations. Here's what I mean. So, there was kind of a two-phased scenario that the government carried out when it came to um, a lot of the settlers colonizing, as well as a lot of the Indian removal acts. Yes, a lot of the Indian removal acts and manifest destiny. This is and by the way, as a disclaimer, this video is a hypothetical video. You don't have to take what I say for face value. Look up everything that I'm talking about, or at least do your own research per se, and to see how everything that I'm saying correlates with what you will possibly research. But yeah, you had the Manifest Destiny and you had the Indian Removal Acts. All of these are key components as to um, what has been done to make a lot of things take place on this soil. I see a few people in the chat. Greetings to everyone. Um, but I basically want to get to the point of where what is basically the true reservation aspect of, someone brought up Drake or Kendrick. Good point. Good point. Someone brought up Drake and Kendrick. That actually ties in with this whole reservation thing because I'm not really picking a side to that beef. I think culturally it doesn't do us any good. It just adds more to the reservations in the ghettos, But I will say this, the way the government has placed things, um, I would say personally, yes, there was a two-part to this. And that two-part basically was how they had to, someone said I look like Saint from Avatar, squeaky clean. Thank you. Also got on the Wakanda hat, right? Because this ties in with what I'm talking about right now, Wakanda. So, but yeah, they moved the original ancestors off of the land that we knew about based on the Indian Removal Act and Manifest Destiny. Okay. And I'll get to where those ancestors went because people think that, oh, they removed our ancestors off these lands and they put them on reservations. No, that's not true. That's not true. Those people you see on the reservations are not ancestors or not even relatives. Maybe some of them are because some of them do have Hebrew admixtures. Yes, I said Hebrew. Not from the standpoint of necessarily Hebrew Israelite, but just Hebrew in the form of copper color, or as Dane Calloway would say, the Niji. Okay. So um, I'd say that to say And yeah, not to digress, but I say Hebrew once again because the first interpreters that came over to these shores, they actually were Hebrew interpreters because a lot of the ways and the oral, the linguistics of the indigenous people here, the true indigenous people, a lot of their words relate back to Hebraic language. A lot of their ways, cultural standpoints and perspectives, a lot of it goes back to Hebraic origin. Okay. But yes, our also one said, please continue, Ray the Romer. I appreciate that. We'll continue. Yes. Uh, so, yes, our ancestors, our original ancestors were removed from their original lands. But what you see on the reservations that we call Indian reservations, those are not actually our ancestors, let alone our relatives. Okay. And yeah, you see my skeleton gloves, but you see that it's kind of worn out because Ray be roaming. you know. So here's the thing. Those people on the reservations that we see now are admixtures and mixtures. Some are mostly Caucagloid or Caucasian or Mongoloid. That's what you see on the reservations. The Caucagloid and Mongoloid. Okay. And I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'm gonna get right to the point on a lot of things. I don't want this video to be too long. What you think were quote Indian boarding schools is not what you think it is. It's not that they were, because history has, it's not true history, it's his story. Uh, what you get from that is basically they weren't brainwashing people in those actual boarding schools, right? That's not what that was about. Some of that probably was depending on who they were able to kidnap and put in that boarding school. Uh, but a lot of it uh, was basically a lot of it was basically kind of like what you would get with the immigrants that come over here and people allege per se, and I say allege because I'm not trying to start like any kind of conspiracy right now. I'll just say allege. Um, I'll say basically that what was going on with like what they consider immigrants even now to this day is basically people be like, oh, they be trying to tell them about the United States and about so-called black people, teaching them racism, teaching them about economics, giving them economics. There's always been this argument that a lot of the foreigners that come here to be nationalized in the United States, they get firsthand on loans and grants and even education and business money, basically. So that's why I see a lot of immigrants that come over here, they're able to start businesses quicker. And more efficient than people that are already here, that been here, like, and I mean true indigenous so-called black people. So uh, I see someone else in the chat saying hello. Hey, Cynthia, I see you. Um, so yeah, you wonder, what happened to all this so-called reparations we speak on, right? You see a lot of this money going out to Ukraine, but nothing to the so-called black people. You see a lot of land going out to other people, but not to so-called black people. You see apologies going out to other countries that the United States have given, but never has been an apology for so-called black people. Because so-called black people aren't actually so-called black. Okay. But yeah, not to digress too far, getting back to what I was talking about with the reservation side. Like I said, what you see on those reservations are not actual ancestors or relatives, albeit some of them do have copper colored slash Hebrew admixtures or mixtures. So that's why some of their phenotypes do look Negro. And Negro actually is another decent term, I think, for what's going on right now with people that look like myself in the United States. Negro is a good term, okay? And this was before they started calling somebody like myself black. It was Negro. At first, it was actually like, they were called like maroon people, so we was also referred to as maroons. Not just due to them being escaped slave people. It was just also due to the color of their skin. They were called maroon people. Sometimes I still like to call myself maroon when I step out in the sun. So one asked me why, where's the snow? Why I got on the gloves? No, this is part of my moniker. You see the skeleton, so it's part of my moniker. So and you look at the avatar on my channel, it's the same thing. You know, yeah. What's going on this reservations is they put these Mongoloid and Caucasians or Caucagloid mixtures. These what they call $5 Indians. They put them on there kind of like after their job was done with the propaganda and the brainwashing of what was quote unquote Native American or indigenous, with all these pictures they taken, even a lot of what we call these wars, like Battle of Bighorn, Battle of Wounded Knee. There was no battle. There were massacres. The only real massacre, there were more massacres with our people than actual battles. A lot of these battles were actually staged. Nobody wants to talk about that right now, though, right? So a lot of what you heard wrote down in history was wrote by the white man's pen about all these different battles that took place, and the people speaking on the battles that don't look like me speaking on the battles. A lot of the elders of who we call chiefs speaking on the battles, or what we call the battles back then, like the Battle of Little Bighorn and all that. These people, uh, they don't look like me speaking about it. None of the ancestors do. They have different stories, and those stories back then were not of battles. They were of true massacres. So every now and then, the what they call the pale face, as a lot of my ancestors called them Wachizus or foreigners. Uh, they do sprinkle a little bit about the massacre in there, you know, and even some of the friendly ones, the friendly foreigners per se. They do speak on that. Yes, white people, the way they did it back in the days was there was no war. They went in, they made everybody sick, they killed the women and the children, they left the men out to die by taking their food. Um, they caused other men to betray our people, to be on side the government, to help further diminish our numbers. That's what actually took place back in the day. It wasn't really more or less the white man's might. It was more or less our people giving him assistance, you know, in some of what took place here on these shores. So, with all that said and done, a lot of what's our ancestry got put actually onto these ghettos in the neighborhoods, in the inner cities, far removed from the countryside. You go to places like down south where there's still country. Uh, uh, Someone said I'm more like Billy Carson. Okay. And then somebody said they lied about everything. Yes, 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 everything. So I agree. I agree. Yes. Yeah. Somebody said they lied to everybody. Yeah, exactly. So somebody gave me some gold medals. Hey, I appreciate that. Someone talked about the blacks were already in America, the Olmecs, exactly, especially in Mexico. They whitewashed Mexico to a great degree. They're still doing that to this day. Even the idea of saying Hispanic, that is whitewash. I'd like to sometimes say Hispanic means his bleach. No pun intended to all the Latinos. But that's basically what you get with what we call brown people, is the whitewashing of what was so-called black in a lot of Latin America. That's for another conversation, not talking about that right now. But that's a lot of times why we consider Latinos our cousins, because they are the closer related of us. Okay. And only some of those who call themselves Native Americans are truly our brothers. Most of what we see as Native America is a whitewashed type of people that still try to wear feathers and tell their aspect of history. But yeah, let me get back to the boarding schools. The boarding schools wasn't really for the brainwashing of indigenous people. What was going on in a lot of those boarding schools, I believe, like I said, this is a hypothetical video. Uh, those in those boarding schools were learning what our ancestors were deprived of. Yeah, they kicked out the real ancestors from ancestral lands, and they had to put in those same lands a different group of people, take them to these boarding schools per se, and teach them the knowledge that our ancestors knew. And maybe some people amongst us betrayed us to teach some of these newcomers this knowledge, kind of like what they do with immigrants right now when they come to these shores, having them learn about America and its culture and even some of the other aspects of stereotypes, like with how to look at a Negro as a ninja, just trying to keep it, pretty lightweight with my choice of words for this video for YouTube. Uh, so that's what actually took place in boarding schools. Boarding schools weren't a brainwashing facility like people think they are. They were actually educational facilities for newcomers that have to portray what the new Indian was actually like. And so the actual, quote, Indians per se were placed into the inner cities, far removed from the country now, far removed from the open plains and the woods, placed into these cities, placed into these hoods and ghettos, lost their spirit, lost their way of life, lost their culture, lost their fight, lost their language, lost their spirituality. For it is still in a lot of us descendants through the form of hip hop, right? In the form of other subcultures. We call what we have the culture, but we don't know what that culture is. So going back to what somebody said about Kendrick versus Drake, that doesn't represent anything to me, to be honest with you, because here's the thing. Kendrick, his trump card was talking about the culture, and he used that to his advantage. But does that really win the war? Kendrick won the battle, but he did not win the war. Drake brought up a point about how Kendrick likes to rap like as if he's trying to set the slaves free. That was an interesting point. That stuck with Kendrick's mind. But actually, that has big implications based on this video that I'm talking about here. Because you're still trapped within your confines of the hood and you're dancing in the hood where nobody's making a difference in the neighborhood. Who still owns those grocery stores that you frequent to? Not us, it's them. Them, the Indians per se. So it's just an overlayer of everything. So I'd say this as far as like a directive of my objective with this video. Uh, the true reservations are these hoods, okay? And you see a lot of, people doing videos wanting to come to the hood and come to all these different hoods. And even now they're having more classier terms for a lot of people. Like, for example, a rapper from Jacksonville, Julio Fulio, right? Rest in peace upon him, since I heard something happened to him. But, they like to say things like Julio Fulio hailed from Jacksonville. He's not originally from Jacksonville based on like ancestry. He has deeper ancestry than that. But they want to limit Black people's ancestry to the hoods because that's where they've confined all of most Black people, to these hoods, quote, reservations, the true reservation, to where you don't even know where you come from. You probably came from way out in a desert where they called people like the Havasupai and the Yavapai in the Hopis, right? But you're far removed from that. You're somewhere in Baltimore repping B-more, talking about stupid, you know what I mean? Like iron to earn to earn. You talking like that, but you way from out there in New Mexico and Arizona, you know what they called Mexico or New Mexico and Arizona. So it's all these things that I'm trying to say that, for what I feel is true Wakanda is learning about your original ancestry, your original origins. You did not originally come from the hood, aka the reservation. You did not come from there. That's where they put you at. That's where they have you at. That's the real reservations. What we call the Indian reservations, those are not actually the true reservations. The true reservations are the ghettos, are the hood. So that's to put a spin on what Dane Calloway mentioned about how the ghettos are the actual reservations. They're actually the true reservations because they pulled people away, and what they have is what we call the reservations now are a bunch of admixtures there, as far as like the whitewashed aspect. After they've literally done their job historically, they had no other place for these people because they couldn't relate back to their Asian ancestry. A lot of them could not relate back to their European ancestry. They were basically a bunch of mixed people, and a lot of them were inbreds. A lot of them are still inbreds. So now, only one of the most prosperous people are still remaining in, and there's actually a long, deep history about this. But the Navajo are not what you think they are, right? Because they did not originally come from where they are down in Southwest United States. They're actually the biggest quote tribe in the United States right now, and I think the wealthiest tribe at this point too. For the longest, it was actually a lot of the Narragansetts and in the Pequots on the East Coast. That's for another story. But right now, if I'm not mistaken, the Navajo have even surpassed a lot of the East Coast tribes with their wealth, let alone their population. But the Navajo have a special place with the government. First of all, the Navajo came from out of Canada. Uh, yeah, they came from out of the Saskatchewan tribes of Canada, and their closest relative is the Apache people. Apache and Navajo were at one time one people. They separated, became a different people, right? But they both ended up down in the southwestern part of the United States. You know, there's a lot to that story. Some of it has been fabricated by those who, uh, let's just say, those that are of a certain color. Some of that story is not fabricated, but a lot of these people, based on where they are, they hold the truths to what needs to be revealed. So y'all notice around the Grand Canyon, a lot has been told that there are a lot of secrets there, right? There are a lot of secrets that have been revealed about the Grand Canyon. And who's the majority people of that region? It's the Navajo people. Now, you have other tribes that are there. You have the Taos, you have the Tewa, you have a lot of other tribes that are significant to that area, right? You have a few pueblos, you have a lot of that down there, right? But the majority people down there as we speak are to this day the Navajo. And there's a reason why the majority of people surrounding that area, surrounding that Grand Canyon, there's a lot of secrets there, right? And so a lot of other foreigners have mixed in with the Navajo people. So the Navajo are not what you think. You know, a lot of these other subsets of reservations, these are just where a lot of their other groups of people live out the remaining days. But they still keep them there because a lot of value is still on those different places. People think, oh, the reservations, they're just plots of land left for deserted people. No, they just put deserted people on those plots of land that still have value. You see, there's a lot of value still in those land, but those are the same lands where so-called black people should be at to this day. That's where they should be. Okay. But I don't want to keep this video too long. There's a lot I could explain. This is a hypothetical video one day. And just like Dane Calloway, I just wanted to make you think versus him just saying, I'm just here to make you think. I just want to make y'all think with this video. From that standpoint, I'll be sure to attach Dane Calloway's name to this video if he gets a chance to check it out. Not to say he'll agree with everything that I'm saying or anybody will agree with everything I'm saying, but this is at least will spark your mind, this type of video, because I'm really just trying to go to a lot of different places spiritually with this channel. And from the looks of it, even based on the replay, I've received a lot of likes for this video immediately, and hopefully many more likes to come, many more views to come. I got a lot of views. I'm getting a lot more views with this video. Spread the word, y'all, and I appreciate y'all stopping by. Y'all continue to stay blessed, stay on the straight and narrow. See y'all next time.